Now, Laura, you're a coach, you're a podcast host, and now a published author. So I know you've got a great story to tell, but maybe if you could just start with introducing yourself to people. We have done a live before, but if they haven't seen that, maybe just let us know a bit about you.
Yeah, okay, great. So another Laura, and it was so weird when we bumped into each other in King's Cross Station last month, right? I was like, I know that lady.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's Laura. I don't think we'd ever actually met in real life before.
We haven't. It's only been online, so it was like, yeah.
Yeah, it's really strange when you meet people from like online in real life and like recognize them.
It's lovely.
So I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, and I have been working for myself for 3 years, and essentially my work is based around helping women and men, but mostly women, who want something different from their life. They want to live the life that they've dreamed of, but they are letting confidence, fear, imposter syndrome, worry about money, worry about, fear of failure, all of that hold them back from actually living the life that they've always dreamed of. And I think it's such a shame that we do that, because there's so much we could do. Yeah. But what happens is we get really focused on all the things that might go wrong rather than the things that might go right.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I mean, if we go back a bit, can you let us know a bit of your journey? I mean, if we go back to what led you down this path, and were you having those same sort of feelings about, could you change your life? Was that sort of what sparked it?
Yeah, definitely. So, going right back 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago, I made a decision to leave my first marriage, and I'd been unhappy for quite a few years, but on paper, I looked like I had it all. I hate that saying, but on paper, I looked like things were good, and friends would say, well, you live in a nice house. I've got 3 lovely children. You've got the kids. What do you want? You go on holiday. What do you want? Yeah. And because, like I say, on paper and in our kind of traditional, these things that we want, I looked like I had it all, but I really didn't, and I didn't want that anymore. And I knew I needed to break free to create a life for myself, which was one that I wanted on my terms, not on the basis of what I'd had for many years. I was with my first husband for 16 years. So I made a really brave decision to walk away. And, that was incredibly painful and very difficult for a long time. But I think that was probably the start of me saying, do you know what? Laura, because I think I'd lost sight of myself. Laura is in here. Laura deserves to have all the things that she wants. Yes. And, for a long time, I was thinking, oh God, I don't know if I can forgive myself for what I've done to my children, Yeah. I didn't want them to be like, my parents have been together for 60 years, right? So I was like, all wrapped up in that. My parents are married, and my ex-husband's parents are still married, and that's what you do, you stay married even when it's tough. And I just thought, I just can't. So that decision was really the start of me saying, okay, what do I want to do? And if I can write my life again, if this is my part 2, if I can write a different life, what would it look like? And I'll be honest, Laura, I didn't know it was going to be what it is now. Yeah. But you have to break free from the thing that isn't serving you in order to give yourself the space to work it out, if that makes sense. I guess it was a risk, but the question that I kept mulling over for years, like for about 3 years before we eventually did split up, was, if I go, will I regret it? If I stay, will I regret it? And I just didn't know the answer. And in the end, when push came to shove, I thought, if I stay, I'll regret it, so I'm going to go. And honestly, it was probably the decision I've ever made in my life, incredibly painful. I had a nervous breakdown after, because even though it was my decision, the agony of losing what you thought you had was awful. But I've basically been rebuilding my life since then, rebuilding then, but like now happy. Like I just allowed myself the freedom to see what I actually wanted. And that involved, I got a different job. I bought a house on my own. I got a different job. I did some retraining. I met somebody fantastic, and my life isn't good just because I met a partner, but I have got a wonderful husband. Does that make sense? So it's not, he's not the whole reason, because I'm happier in myself. But and then 3 years ago, I decided to leave my corporate role and go out on my own, and I got married, and it's just been great, fantastic. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. And I think that's because I get to call the shots and I'm in control of the things that I do now.
I love that. I just love it. But it's so brave to make those big decisions, because there's a lot of pressure, isn't there, on there's a lot of shoulds and comparison, and what does society and other people and what we might have been led to believe when it comes to marriage and the way that life is. And so stepping away from that and saying, actually, I deserve to be happy. But it's hard to do. It's a big leap sometimes.
Yeah, and it is hard. And I think I went into like a period of mourning for the life that I thought I was going to have, right? So then I remember my parents live in Spain, and I was supposed to be going on holiday with my ex-husband to France with some friends. Like, we were taking 2 cars, and I just thought, I can't drive to the south of France with the kids. I just can't. It's too much on my own. So my mum and dad said, just come out here, come out for a couple of weeks, but bring the kids. And, I used to go out there every summer anyway, but, lose the deposit, just give up that holiday, come here. And so I remember being at the airport, and so my kids were 4, 8, and 9, and I was in the queue to drop a bag off. And this older couple were behind me, and the guy there, hello, right, kids, hello. Oh, where are you off to? I said, I'm off to Spain to see my mum and dad. Oh, that's nice. You got the kids on your own? And I said, yeah. And he went, oof, that's hard work, isn't it? And he didn't mean it, obviously. He didn't mean to, but I was crying. I just turned away from him because I thought, it is really hard work.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really early on. It's really hard work. And I felt like when I was lying by the pool at my parents' house, I just look at Facebook, and all these people I knew were on family holidays. And I was like, I'm never going to have a family holiday. It's ridiculous. I'm never going to have a family holiday. I don't get a family holiday. They get that. That's not fair. Why did they get that? And then I was like, I had to do a lot of work on myself and go, actually, I'm a family. But I was frustrated, Laura, when I would see things like a family would be 2 adults, 2 parents, and 2 children. And I was like, well, there's 1 adult, 1 parent, and 3 kids, and we are a family.
Yeah.
And this is my family, and this is, if this is all it is for the rest of my life, this is my family. But it took time to get through that, and I was very envious of people who seemingly had like normal, happy relationships that I did.
Yeah.
It's definitely a grieving process. And I'm obviously not comparing it to actually losing somebody as somebody dying, but it is a grieving process for the life that you thought you would have.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. A similar thing cropped up for me last week. I was at a women's circle, and we were sharing with the group, and I found that sort of narrative coming from me about grieving, letting go of the life that I thought I was going to have as a family and as a wife, and that version of me, and sort of the forgiveness for me and him and everything that comes with it. And that sort of, it was in the back of my mind, but the way that it sort of came out, and I was like, oh yeah, it is that there is a grieving and a letting go and a moving through that comes with that. But also a liberation.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So when I moved into my house, so I stayed in the marital home for We were trying to sell it, and it was, at the time, it was kind of quite an expensive house for where we lived. So it was a bit of an anomaly. So anyway, it took a while to sell. Anyway, I bought this house, and I bought the house literally over the road. My son has actually said, "Oh, mummy, why don't we?" I kept seeing houses, and then they would fall through because I hadn't sold the family home, and marital home, I should say, not family home. And anyway, so I was looking around, and then my son said, "Why don't we just buy the house over the road? Because then we wouldn't need a removal van. We could just carry our stuff over." And I thought, it'd been empty for ages. So anyway, I bought it. I managed to buy it, and we literally crossed the road and took our stuff over. And I was in that house, and I was only in there for a couple of years, 2.5 years, but I called it the happy house, and it was such a happy time. It's probably the only house I'll ever own on my own. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know, until if I'm a widow, I don't know. Do you see what I mean? Like, that's the house I had on my own. I had it for 2.5 years, 2.25 years. I absolutely loved it. Every decision I made in the house was mine. So the minute I got in there, I ordered an outdoor sofa, which I'd wanted one for years. But, you know, garden furniture is hideously expensive. And I'm not getting at my ex-husband, because he just said, well, you know, it's really expensive. We'll wait till the sales. But of course, you never buy an outdoor sofa in the sale, because then you're thinking Christmas is coming. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not doing that. So it was like, well, do you know what? I want an outdoor sofa. I've always wanted an outdoor sofa. I'm going to buy one. And then when they delivered it, it was chucking it down. And I still sat in the garden on it and went, I've got an outdoor sofa, because it was my decision to buy it. I just loved that freedom. Definitely the weight of responsibility, because everything in the house was down to me, but also everything in the house was down to me. How I decorated it, how I spent my money, the parties that I had, the things I let the kids do. My decision. I could have friends around anytime I wanted. My decision. So liberating.
Yes. Yeah. You have my full respect. And I mean, there will undoubtedly be people watching this that might be feeling a similar way, that aren't able, either now or at a future date, aren't able to step away from their marriage. And there's an acknowledgement of that. But I think there are, I wonder how you feel, if there's things you feel, therefore, that women, and whether women you work with, there's things that then they can do to still pursue those dreams and things that maybe there's still a path for them to find some freedom.
Of course.
Even if, you know, not that it's all wrapped, I'm not saying it's all wrapped up in your marriage, but if, you know, some bits aren't always perfect, but it's still possible to carve that path.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm always really clear. I'm not advocating you get divorced.
No,
that's not what I'm saying.
I'm the same. Yeah.
No,
what I'm saying that.
But what I'm saying is that sometimes that's where the path to freedom started for me.
Yeah. There's often a point
like that for everybody else.
Yeah. Maybe there's just often a point for people, and then it off you go.
Yeah. And it just is one of those things. It just happened to me. It just happened. It doesn't mean that's the right way, or I'm not right or wrong, and neither is anybody else. It's just that's the way it worked out for me. But I'm a great believer in that. You so often in life we just get stuck on the train. We get on that train and we go, right, this is the way that you're supposed to do your life, right? You know, and it's interesting. I'm watching it now with my daughter, who's just about to turn 18. So you know, do GCSEs, do your A levels, go to university, don't go to university, whatever you do, meet somebody, you know, maybe buy a house, or you start living together, maybe you get married, maybe you have children. This is the life that you've got to follow, and you just keep repeat until you retire. And I just don't think life is like that anymore. I think life is, we live much longer lives. My dad's just about to turn 80. He's really fit. Like, we live much longer lives. We work for much longer. We have more freedom, you know, like every generation. Like, I've got much more freedom than my mum had. My mum had much more freedom than her mum. My daughter and my stepdaughters and my sons will have much more freedom than I've had. So, you know, we have the space and the time to do all sorts of different things. So why spend time doing something which actually grinds you down, which doesn't bring you like the joy, which doesn't make you happy? So I base my life and I base my work with my clients on 4 F's, which is freedom, flow, fulfillment, and fun. So I try to, everything I do, I try to fit it into one or more of those categories. So like, do I really want to do that? Does that fit in with my life? Otherwise, why am I doing it? I don't want to be resentful. And I've done some work this year for some corporate clients, and it doesn't make me feel any of those things. And actually they said, oh, you know, they put a pause on the work, and I just thought, you know what, thank you, because I don't want it. I just don't want it. I don't want it. I want to do work. I work with clients that I love.
Yes.
Whether that's, and I do still do a bit of corporate work, but I'm much more selective now about those corporate clients. I work with my personal, my business coaching clients. I work with people I absolutely love, that I enjoy spending time with. And when I get up in the morning and I know what my day looks like, and the reason flow fits in for me is because I'm talking to you from my office at the bottom of my garden. So I'm at home, I'm in and out of the house, I see the kids, you know, wish my daughter good luck for going off for her psychology A-level exam today. I just have that just kind of gorgeous mix of everything. So I don't have those long working hours and not seeing much of the kids, which is, I didn't want to miss them. They were going to grow up and I was missing it.
Yes. And is that why a lot of your clients come to you? Is it that they want to maybe move out of a corporate role, or is it just that they are looking to sort of step towards that dream life?
I think a lot of people want to come to me because they need a boost of confidence to, you know, get them to take that first step outside of corporate, to believe that actually working for themselves could sustain them financially. You know, it's all well and good having the freedom and stuff like that. If you're not earning the money, that doesn't, you
having
know,
loads
freedom.
of fun but no money.
Yeah, you have loads of fun not earning any money, right? It's about how you build that business, which actually is on your terms, which will give you the income that you want. But, you know, it's like it ticks all the boxes. But I absolutely believe it's about how you talk to yourself and how you feel about yourself is whether you are able to do that. Because funnily enough, since I had started believing and really engaging and understanding myself, knowing what makes me happy, working towards that, setting goals, understanding why all of this is important to me, all these great things have happened. And it's because I'm open to those possibilities. It's because my brain seeks those great moments and pushes me further.
Yes.
It's easy to stay stuck, or some people won't be stuck, some people will enjoy it, and that's fine. It's not for everybody, but it's easy to stay in the status quo because that's less frightening. It's perhaps less overwhelming. Perhaps your worries are lower and stuff like that. But does that give you the life that you've always wanted? Does that give you the 4 F's? Do you feel joyful? And if you don't, I think you should do something about it.
Yeah. Because life's short, hey. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Yeah.
And I honestly, I couldn't. This is actually really sad. But I went to see a friend of mine yesterday, who is in his early 60s, and he's got motor neurone, and probably this is his final year, and he's 61.
Yeah.
And that is an absolute wake-up call of, you know, you just never know what's around the corner. It's funny because you never know what's around the corner, but you also never know what's around the corner.
Exactly,
So why not?
On one hand it's
see
good,
if
one
you
hand
can
it's
find
bad.
something good?
Yeah. And that openness that you've had to opportunities and things that you would like to see in your dream life, has that led towards you having your own podcast and now your own book? Like, do you feel like did you set out with those things in mind, or how have you just been open to them and then worked hard?
Well, all of that, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have to roughly know where you're going, but I think often people don't know that. And kind of hate this analogy, but you know, like you get in a car and they'll say, oh, if you don't put it in the sat nav, how will you know where you're going? Well, that stops quite a lot of people, because you'd be like, well, if I don't know exactly how to get to that place, then I won't start. But the reality is you won't necessarily know all the steps, because if you've never done it before, you wouldn't necessarily know. And I mean, even splitting up with somebody, and then all of that, you have to navigate with that legally and all of that, and then buying a house on your own. And you know, I bought houses, but I'd never had to do all of the ins and outs myself, so I didn't quite understand, you know, exactly the process. I didn't know that before, and I had to learn that. So everything you've ever done, you've had to learn in your life, and you can learn something else. It's okay not to know exactly where you're going. When I started my business, so I left my corporate role just as the pandemic hit, I was a bit vague about what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really sure. And it took me time to find that niche, that sweet spot of the bit that I really wanted to help my clients with. But that didn't stop me launching my podcast. You see what I mean? Like I was like, oh, I really want to do a podcast. I was really late to the party with podcasts. My husband's been listening to them for years, but I really want a podcast because I really like talking, as you can tell. So I'd like to get my message out. And somebody showed me a bit of, like, told me what they did, literally on the back of on a post-it note. I wrote down a few things and I just launched it. The book was, I'd always wanted to write a book ever since I was at school, ever since I was a little girl, but I thought it had to be fiction, and I can't write fiction. It just doesn't come to me. Like stories, I can tell a good story, but it's a thing that happened. It's not, I haven't made it up. So I just couldn't write fiction. And then as I started my business, I thought, I looked around at like the businessy books and the books that I read, which helped me early on in my journey, like books like kind of Denise Duffield Thomas and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I could actually write a book like this. This is the book. It's not to say that I won't write fiction, but right now, this is the book that I need to write. And this is the book that will help women, and then to actually push forward and to kind of really break down their thoughts, break down those mindset barriers, so they're able to push on confidently with all that they want to achieve.
Yes. So tell us more. Tell us, how did the journey, how did it start, and how did it go from having that aspiration for writing to then you said, yeah, okay, this could be more of a entrepreneurial mindset book. How did you then go from that to now being published and being out there?
So at the start of I keep doing this. I was going to say 2001. I don't mean that. I mean 2021. At the start of, that was a long time ago.
Weird,
at the start of 2021, I made a commitment that I was going to write twice a week. So when you haven't written anything for a long time, like I read English at university, but I haven't really, and I did some professional qualifications, so I did some writing for that, but I hadn't really written for a long time. So you need to kind of get back in the habit of it. So I thought, right, I'm going to write, and I set a reminder on my phone to write twice a week. So I'd actually, in 2021, I'd actually written about 13,000 words, but didn't have any structure. I just would like write about a subject, then I'd write about another subject. So it was just words. And then I thought, oh, how am I going to get this to, how am I actually going to get it out? Because I don't really know what I'm doing here. Anyway, then I was watching, there was somebody who runs a hybrid publishing company, and I was watching her for a while. I really like to work with her. And then, but the kind of the package that she was offering, it was out of reach for me. Anyway, then last April, I actually had COVID, and I just happened to see one teeny tiny post of hers, but had no link. I said, oh, you know, it's closing tomorrow. It was like a kind of half package, if that makes sense. You know, but I couldn't seem to find the link. And I was like, oh God, it finishes tomorrow. I really want to do it. So anyway, I found it, literally signed up on the spot. And then I had the first call with them and said, oh, right, when should we set the launch date for? And we agreed end of 30th of March 2023, which I remember writing it in my phone and putting in capitals, my book launch, loads of exclamation marks, and thought, oh, that doesn't feel like it will ever come round. It does. yeah, so then it was really good the way that I did it. So I mean, you know, traditional publishing is very hard. It's hard to get a deal as a non-fiction writer unless you already have a massive profile.
Yeah.
So that's why if you think of people like you know, athletes, sporting people, celebrities, you know, comedians, etc., they will get a deal because they've got a huge following already and have that huge following. So that's kind of traditional publishing. And then self-publishing is absolutely fine, except if you don't exactly know what you're doing, you could self-publish anything. And I wanted to write something of merit.
Yes.
I needed help with it. So hybrid publishing for me was the kind of way forward. So yeah, so then I just systematically worked through it. It took me about 6 months to write it. Had to go back at what I'd written and change a lot of it. Change the voice in it because the voice was wrong. Yeah, finished it before Christmas and then did a lot of proofreading. Proofreading is, and even I was actually talking about my book at my networking group last week. I read an extract from it and I noticed a typo. Like there was a comma missing, and I was like, how can there be a comma missing when I've read this book so many times?
There's always something you miss.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so I launched it at the end of March, and it did really well. So it was I hit like #1 in 10 different categories. Amazon puts everything into categories, so 10 different categories, and I was #1 on the movers and shakers chart for the whole of the UK, which was amazing. Until the next morning when my husband said, "Are you making tea?" And I was like, I'm a mover and shaker, you know. He said,
I don't do tea
even
anymore.
movers and shakers have to put the kettle on, Laura. So that was it. But you know, it's amazing. It's really.
Have you got a copy? Show us.
I don't have it in here, but I've got my big.
Oh, love it. So then you had to do a whole launch.
Yeah, I did that. So I launched it on the Thursday, and then I had a big fancy party on the Friday. Oh, it was fantastic. Just my mum came over from Spain, and just all my friends and family around me. It was amazing, amazing. And do you know what? The book has opened doors for me that weren't there before. I essentially wanted a way to communicate with a wider audience. You know, if somebody said, I really want to make a change in my life, but I don't know where to get started. You know, I'd like to work with Laura, but that's out of reach. Then they could buy my book, and actually, it's a bit like having me in your pocket. You could do that work on your own.
Okay, so if someone's watching this and what's your ideal, who's your target audience with your book then, if there's?
So I guess it's somebody who has decided that they are, I should have had a book here because it's got the blurb on the back. But
I'll add the blurb in.
So it's, if you are ready to make a change in your life, you know that you want something different. And I talk about, so the book's called Dream It and Do It, 6 steps into your own dream life and business. The business might not be for you. It might be more about dream life. The reason I put business in there is because I believe that working for yourself is the way to have true freedom, because then you don't have your boss saying, no, you can't have Friday off. Or you can't go and take your friend out who's poorly and take him out for a coffee and cake. And do you see what I mean? Like that's,
you don't
have, that you can have all that freedom. So yeah, it's somebody who wants to make a change in their life, but you know, lack of confidence, fear, imposter syndrome, fear of failure, also fear of success might be holding them back. And I also think there's an element of, who am I to want more? Like feeling guilty if we want. I certainly felt like that when I was deciding to leave my first marriage. Oh God, you are so ungrateful, or why aren't you happy with what you've got? But if you're not happy with what you've got, it's okay. It's not for anybody else to judge. If you want more, have more. If you want less, have less. If you want different, go for different. But don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't want that or shouldn't feel that, because it's up to you how you feel.
And actually stopping to listen to yourself, like what that, maybe that gut instinct might be telling you that isn't always comfortable to listen to, is it?
Do you know what's so one of the things that I talk about in the book is, and you'll know this from having your daughters, when you have children and they say, Mummy, I really want to do this when I'm a grown up, what would your girls say at the moment that they want to do?
Oh, One of them is going to travel the world with her fashion design business. Yes,
Right.
that's what she's doing. Yeah.
Right. So when she says that, you don't say, oh my God, that's never going to happen.
No.
You can't do that, whatever, you know, get real, do you? Because you go, oh, darling, that's amazing, you know, because you're really encouraging. Then when your children become like near adults, you say, come on, time to get serious. You're an adult now. You've got to grow up and stop dreaming. And we forget that we're still allowed to want things even later in our lives. So I'm 48, I'm still allowed to want things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so interesting what you say about listening to yourself. I was just at an event at the weekend and I was doing a giveaway. And the question I asked to capture people's email addresses, right, for the giveaway, I asked a question, what do you dream of doing with your life in the next 5 years? And it was, honestly, I asked it because I was interested in the response. But the number of women who got to that, it was basically a women-only event, the number of women that looked at it and said, oh, I don't know, so I won't be able to enter the giveaway. And I said, no, it's fine. If you don't, doesn't really matter what you write. I just was interested in what people would say, right? Doesn't matter. There's no test.
Yes.
I'm not going to hold you to it.
Yeah.
But I thought what was so interesting was that it showed that we don't allow ourselves to think like that. We just stay stuck in the day to day and we don't look ahead and think, what might I like to do? We just go, no, this is what I've got.
Yeah. Or we're just so busy on the treadmill of life. You get to the end of another year and you think, hang on, like you've not even paused to see if you're even on the path that you want to really be on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's one for everyone to think about now, isn't it?
Yeah. For what do you dream of doing the next 5 years? Could be anything.
Yeah. If nothing.
And they don't have to be. And the other thing I'd say is, like, I've made big shifts in my life. They don't have to be big. They can be small, teeny. They can be big. They can be anything in between.
Yeah.
We sometimes think that if we've got to dream of something, it's got to be a massive shift. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It could be, you know, I dream of being able to, I don't know, go and get my nails done, or I dream of being able to take a Friday off to do such and such. Whatever it is, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do.
Yeah. Something. Yeah. Dream of something that's different, something you're not doing now. Yeah.
But if you don't articulate what it is, you'll never make it. You've got to be able to see it and then say, yeah, I see that. I want it. I'm going to get it.
Have it, the vision. And so what's next? What's next in your 5-year plan, Laura? Now you've mentioned 5 years. I'm putting you on the spot. What can you share that's not top secret?
So what will I do next? Actually, I'm having a bit of a reset after I was at this event in London, because I feel like I've had a really manic year so far with the book and this event that I went to. I think I'll write another book. I know what it's going to be, but that'll probably be next year. I'd like to do an audiobook version of the book. You can have it on paperback or Kindle, but I'd like to do an audio version. I'd probably like to be more, raise my profile. So I'd like to be more, you know, visible, which is quite frightening actually for me, but that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to be more visible so that I'm more out there in terms of helping women. That's what I would really like, but I'm not entirely sure what that looks like yet. But, you know, I seem to achieve the things that I say. So watch this space.
You've said it now. You've said it.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
And women that, well, not just women, but women are the ones in this group watching. If they're sat now with us live or catching up, have you got any sort of advice or a first step to go away, apart from buy your book? That's obviously on the list, but to just start the ball rolling if there's that niggling feeling that you want to change something?
So I would say let it out, because so often what happens is we have an idea and, oh, I know, I'd really like to do that. And it's just in your head. You haven't said it out loud. You haven't written it down, you haven't told anybody. And you're like, oh yeah, that would be so great if I did that. And then immediately what happens is the negative side of your brain the critical side says, oh, Laura, what are you thinking? You can't do that. You can't do that. Who are you to do that? Why would that work? Don't be silly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of talk yourself out of it. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. I can't do that. I can't do that. And then you just dismiss it before you've even explored it.
Yeah.
And as women in particular, I think we're very good at that, because I think, and this is a generalization, we're prone to a little bit of overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll, take it, really extrapolate it forward and, create the worst case scenario. So two things, actually. One, get it out of your head and somewhere, write it down. Don't show anybody. Keep it hidden because it's just for you. Write it down, put it in the notes in your phone, put something down, and then allow yourself to consider, what if it did work? What if you could make it come true? Because what happens is we tend to go, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah. What if it didn't work? What would happen? Allow yourself to just start exploring what could go right rather than what could go wrong.
Yeah. And could that be starting with small things rather than, even if it's, like, if someone says to me about, for instance, running, straight away I'm like, no, it's not possible for me to do running. I can't do running. Like, it's like that is a write-off. If someone suggested to me that I could run a half marathon, no, that's written off. It's those, like, do you think like getting in the habit of the smaller things helps with the bigger?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny you say that, because I've written a post about running this morning. So
have you? I need to go and read it.
Yeah, because I went to, when I was at this event, my friend was helping me, we were just chatting, and she said, why don't you run anymore? You used to run all the time. And I said, I don't know. Why don't I run anymore? And I realized, and this is what I've written in my post, is that a lot of times I ran when I was unhappy, and it was way I got out of the house, I got some time to think, I got some time to cry sometimes, but I just got away from the house, and I loved it for many reasons, but that was probably the driving force. And now I'm happy. I've got a bit slack with my exercise because I'm just like happy and content. But I done 2 teeny runs this week, and when I say teeny, I mean teeny, and there was a lot of walking. There was a little bit of running and a lot of walking in between. But you know what? I did it and I felt really good about it. And I'm not trying to convert you, because actually I talk about this in the book about my love of running, and if people have very clear views on running, whether they're into it or not. But for me, I thought, right, I've just done that, and it's only been, I probably did 2K this morning, and that was hard work. But that's okay. It's all right. It's a start, and then I'll go again. I don't, we sometimes think we've got to, get to the end goal straight away. I used to be able to run half marathons. I can barely run for a bus. So I just need to build up to that. But that habit of, maybe 3 times a week, put my trainers on and go and do something, you soon find that becomes easier, and then you'll do something else. So yeah, if you're thinking about what you'd like to be doing, you don't have to do the whole thing, but you could do a little something towards it. And it's those baby steps that make the progress. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Love that. I'm not going to promise to be a running.
No, you come and you could run half marathon, but you clearly don't want to.
Not at the moment. I'm just going to have a look.
Next year, in 5 years, in the next 5 years, Laura.
In the next 5 years, I'll have at least well, maybe,
considered it.
Thought about it, given it some more
thought about it, and it's a no. Anyway. But isn't that the thing? Isn't that the crux of it? That there's all these bandwagons that we get on, like running's really good, like heart run's really good, or intermittent fasting is really good, or this is really good. Do you know what you've got to do? Or wild swimming's really good. Do you know what you've got to do? You've got to find what you actually enjoy, rather than what somebody else says you should do, because that's the only way to stick at it.
Yeah, I think, as you said, wild swimming, I think I'd be more likely to choose that than the running. Even if,
whereas that feels, I don't like swimming, that just fills me with horror.
Yeah, I mean, I might only go once, but I might try. Maybe I'll try that then. I'll add that to my list. Are there any final things you would like to share with anyone? Or I feel like you have given so much already to us. It's definitely one that I'm going to encourage people to catch up on. if they haven't been able to join us live, given that I didn't promote it to anyone. We did it quite impromptu.
We did. I think there's a bit at the end of the book where I say, if at the title of the book, if you dream it, you can do it. And I honestly believe that if you dream something, you can do it. You just have to believe that you can do it, if that makes sense. But the dream is the important bit. So don't dismiss yourself before you've even explored whether it's a possibility. Allow yourself to believe that these things that you can explore, that you are, you know, you're allowed to, you can do that, you can really think quite deeply about what you want to do and then work out a plan of how to achieve it.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss yourself before you've even got started, because that's how you stay in the status quo. And if the status quo is making you happy, then great. But if it's not, do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. A big yes to that. How can people work with you, Laura, if they, you've got, I know, you run some things locally in person to you, don't you?
Yes, I was going to say that actually, because if you've got people listening who are local to St Albans, so I'm in Ampton in Bedfordshire and I run a local networking group. If you fancy a trip out of St Albans, our next session is 22nd of June. It's called the Dream Life Business Club, and it's going to be our first birthday actually on the 22nd. It's such a great meetup, really lovely informal networking group. So I've got that. You can come and find me on Instagram. I'm at the Dream Transition Mentor. You can buy my book. And this weekend, actually, come and follow me on Instagram, because this weekend I've got a little offer that's going out for the bank holiday of a short, sharp way to work with me. So if you listen to this and you thought, wow, I'd like to know a bit more, but I can't commit to like one of my standard one-to-one package, then follow my socials and come and see what I've got on offer.
Okay, we'll do that. I'll add all of the links in. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for being so honest and sharing your story. I'm really grateful for your time today.
Nice to connect with you too.
Yeah. And if you are watching after, please let us know any comments, questions. I'll put all of Laura's details in, and yeah, we'll catch up with you soon. All right.